Welcome to Akron's 21st Century Local History Club. What might your name be?
My name is Irene Koubek.
Okay. You can stop anytime if you want, and there's water here for you. What was your occupation?
I was a school teacher.
Any subject?
Yes, I taught juniors and seniors, and I was a business teacher. At that time, that's what it's called. It's very changed now. It's a different world.
What was the curriculum like?
Well, I taught English from the business standpoint, and I taught courses related to business law and personal typing so that it fit in with term papers and any number of subjects, and then of course secretarial, and which is so changed now. I hate to even talk about it. It's not the same world anymore.
Is there any one incident that you remember?
Oh, many incidents, because I really loved my kids. And I had so many I could fill the next 2 hours just talking about them. But and I didn't know, I hadn't thought about that, but is that what you wanted me?
If you'd like to tell one.
No, not necessarily. I think there are more important things than that. But I love my kids, and I think to this day I have one former student. We write email every single day. And I have about 5 other students that come out to see me all the time. And one is just like a boyfriend to me because we go out on dates together, but that's a big difference. They think he's out with his grandmother when he's with me.
Where did you teach?
I taught in Eden and in Hamburg, but I spent most of my time in North Collins because an opening came in my field, and there wouldn't be in the other schools, and so I taught up there, and I liked it very much.
Oh.
Wonderful kids.
What made you decide to move to Akron?
Because the house right behind my daughter came on the market, right in the backyard, and she's on Bloomingdale, and this is Madison. And I said, I'm buying it. When she said it's on the market, I said, sold. Right away. Because I thought I'd reached the stage of life that I should be thinking about things like that, although I love my town. I hated to leave that. But that's how I came out here.
What do you like about Akron?
Well, it's sort of a hidden jewel. When I told my friends that I'm moving to Akron, they said, why do you want to go to Ohio? And I had never heard of Akron until my daughter moved out here. And I like everything about it. I like the people. I think your school is excellent. And I'm not just saying that because I'm here. It has a very good rating. And I like churches in town. It's just a very comfortable town. And it's close to Buffalo, so you can still get around and do other things.
Mm-hmm. What historical event has impacted you most in your lifetime?
Well, you know, I've been thinking about that since I knew I was coming here. And the thing that my mind has not left is Saturday. You know what I'm talking about?
The Columbia.
The Columbia. And this morning I got out, I thought, when did Orville Wright fly his first plane? Orville and Wilbur. And it was 1903. No wonder when I lived in Buffalo at that, you know, that's where I was born and raised. And that made me realize why, as a small child, when you heard a plane outside, because they were all motor, you know, propeller type planes, everybody ran out of the house to look in the sky to see a plane. So that was, you know, so interesting to me.
Yeah.
And when I was in high school, and I was either a junior or a senior, we went out of the school one day during the middle of the day and all stood outside to watch 10 planes go overhead. But it was a very, very important event. It was Balboa, not Balboa. He was a discoverer way back in history. But Balboa was a Fawcett. He was an Italian, and he was an aviator. And he took these 10 planes, I believe, around the world. And it just so happened that our school knew he would be passing over the Buffalo area, and they had us all outside. And I know I was a junior and senior, so you can see how what a big event. And I stood out there, and I was absolutely thrilled to death. And then I had one other event. Now, you should, since you like to read, you ought to get some books about Lindbergh. And his daughter has written books, and his mother and his wife have written books. And I was just trying to think of what I was going to say. Oh, he did what they called barnstorming, which meant they had little planes, one propeller things, and they went around the countryside, and they would come down in a field someplace, which they did in Eden, and they would take you for an airplane ride for $5. Now that was a lot of money then, but an airplane ride, that was out of this world. And my father grabbed me and said, "Come on, Irene." And of course I ran right with him to the plane, and he was just lifting me up into that seat. It was an open car, just lifting up, and this blood-curdling scream came, and my mother is standing right next to my father, grabbed me and said, "You can go, but you're not taking that child." Of course, I screamed bloody murder. "I want to go, I want to go." But my mother wouldn't let me go. And to think that I could tell you now that I rode in a plane barnstorming, I feel so badly that I never had that chance. And if you read the Lindbergh books, there's so many of them, they will talk a great deal about barnstorming. And then the fact that if you wanted to send a letter in a hurry, you put extra postage on it, and you could send it airmail, which was a big thing. Now those things are history now. Very sad.
Wow, I never heard of that before.
Well, get some of those books and read about it, especially the Lindbergh books. I think there are many. His daughter wrote a beautiful book, and there's one written about his wife. And of course, I remember the incident of the news when he flew the Atlantic.
Wow.
So, to me, I guess the incident of Saturday, brought it back to me and made me think about these things that I had never thought about before, all these years.
Wow.
And then I wanted to listen to the memorial today. Of course, I forgot. But I did hear on PBS an interview of some of the astronauts. And I certainly hope we continue. But to get a new plane, which we really need, it would be at least 12 years, a new shuttle.
Yeah.
And,
That would be like...
and did you know, I didn't know this, but you know the spacecraft that's up in the platform that's up in the sky?
Yeah.
Do you know we've got to keep going up there because every time we send a ship up, they nudge it up again. It's constantly sinking. And it would take years before it would come down. But they've got to keep going up there and lifting it.
Wow, I did not know that.
And then another thing one of the astronauts said today, that he wishes that we would start doing something on the moon. That planet is one of, and he'd been to the moon, and he said that he thought we should maybe be doing setting up some stations or living quarters on the moon.
Wow.
Another gem that I got today they mentioned is, do you realize that people at NASA and the people that are working on our spacecraft Most of them are 60, and only half of them are youth. You know,
Oh.
20. Have you ever thought about being an astronaut or looking at?
No.
That's why I was hoping to have a whole bunch of kids here to encourage them to go into either the computer work. You wouldn't have to fly, but I would think that would be a fantastic field, and I certainly hope we spend some money there along with schools.
I know a kid who wants to go into it.
I need to stop it for 1 second.
We got to get. Let's begin now where you are in this. I don't know how, we should have
Ask
brought
her
it
if
in
she
at
heard
the
about
beginning.
Saturday.
Could we make a false introduction and then paste it on there?
Yeah, that's what we can do.
edit it in. But just ask her if she knows about Saturday, or like you just started before.
Should I ask her? You haven't got it on yet, have you?
It's on, but we can edit it
We
out.
can all edit this
All
out.
right. Now, did you hear, well, I did say that once though, didn't I?
Yeah, but we weren't filming.
Oh.
You were just practicing.
Do you remember what happened on Saturday morning, or were you around, or what am I trying to tell you?
Actually, my mom yelled up the stairs to me. She's like, "Shan, turn on channel 2. There's something on there about the Columbia." And when I turned it on, all I saw was a little headline that said NASA had lost contact with the space shuttle. And as we were watching it, I started seeing the video, and the eyewitnesses from Texas and all that. And actually, I wanted to know if my uncle lives in Plano, Texas, just right near Dallas. So I want to know if he saw anything. But yeah, I saw that, and I'm like, whoa. And it was just, and then my friends and I, we went to the movie, and the whole way there we talked about it.
Yes. And my former student that I write to every day, her cousin lives in Dallas, and he works at NASA headquarters. She said, fortunately, he was not involved in this trip. But she said all the relatives said that when they went outside, because many of them saw the streamers, you know, in the sky where it was burning, she said the air was pungent and acid, the smell. They actually could, they lived between Dallas and Houston, and the air just had a terrible odor.
Oh.
And I think we've covered, now, who was on the plane?
There was
Seven
people on the plane. One of them was the first Israeli in space.
Yes.
There were 2 women on board, and the one woman was born in India, and she was naturalized to become an American citizen. Yeah, and
I heard they were all, the rest of them were all from different states, Virginia, all over the country. And some were married and some were not married. And then one actually had been in the circus. And he was the co-pilot, if I remember correctly. I don't know what else to say now.
oh, we can move on.
Yeah, you could move on now.
All right.
I think you talked about it.
You lived through the Depression, right?
Yes.
What was that like?
Well, I was very young, and we didn't really suffer. You know, we had no problems during the Depression. In fact, I was getting ready to go off to college at that particular time. I was just trying to think of, you know, it really didn't affect me very much. All I remember is my mother said she could take very little money and go to the store and buy an awful lot. Prices were extremely low. I do remember one time as a very small child, and it couldn't have been that Depression, that there must have been unemployment. Now you remember, we're talking about the time in our country when there was no Social Security, no welfare as far as government checks coming to you if a woman had children and her husband died, there was no money given to her by the government to take care of them. That's why we had to have orphan asylums in those days, which we don't have anymore. But
Yeah.
a mother couldn't do anything but put her baby
Yeah.
into an asylum so she could go out and work. And there weren't many lucrative opportunities for women in those days. Remember, they never had the background or education to get a very good job where she could have earned more than her husband did. Other than that, I don't remember a great deal. I remember we had a telephone, believe it or not, and all the neighbors always came to use our telephone. When you think about it, when I was born, there were no electrical appliances, absolutely nothing. I mean, stove, refrigerator. I remember our first refrigerator. My father said that was the most wonderful thing that had ever been invented. I remember hearing my first radio, which you had to have earphones and about 16 dials to turn across the front in batteries. And I know I said to myself, because I was a little child, of course all the adults listened, and I had to sit and wait until someone would let me listen. And I made up my mind that when I grew up, I was going to have enough earphones that everyone in the house could listen, because I felt I missed so much. And I do remember I was a small child, and my mother and father were so excited because we were going to listen.
4:30 detention will be in room
We were going to
118.
listen
4:30
to
detention
Mexico
will be in
City
118.
on the radio, and it was going to be at 3 in the morning. So they got me off to bed nice and early, and they promised me that I'd get up, which they did. And I tore downstairs and put those earphones on, and I heard Mexico City speaking, Mexico City, Mexico City. And that's all they said was Mexico City. But it was a thrill because I had heard all the way to Mexico City. When you think of these things, that there were more, we didn't have as many bathroom facilities. There were more outhouses in those days than bathrooms. We had no convenience. There was no such things as the type of washing machines we have now, and dishwashers, and that's all happened in my generation, which is amazing. And some of them in yours. The TV, I'm sure you can almost remember.
I love my TV.
That's the one thing that I wish you didn't love. But no, there are good programs, such things as seeing the program. And I do remember when we landed on the moon, but not with people in it. And I was teaching, and I went to the principal and I said, we got to get a TV. So the children must see this. Oh, come on, Irene, go back to your room. And so when the day that they were going to land an instrument on the moon and they could take the pictures, I said to my class, come on. They said, where are you going? I said, follow me. And we went up to the teacher's lounge. I opened the door and I said, hope no one's smoking in here. And they put all the cigarettes, and I took my whole class in, and we sat in the teacher's room and listened to it. And the teachers were furious, and the principal was furious, and I said, but I'm going to do it every time that something important happens. And so they got another TV for someplace else. And I always took the children. I mean, they were high school students, and I didn't think they should ever miss any event.
Did you do that with the Apollo 13?
Apollo 13. Land on the moon?
Well, no, Apollo 13 is the one where it didn't land on the moon. Something went wrong with it, and and space, and they had to bring it back. Did you?
No, I listened to that. I remember when we went around the moon on Christmas Eve, and that was Christmas Eve. Oh, that was a thrilling feeling because it was Christmas Eve. I thought probably I was the luckiest person. I don't know if it fits in with this discussion, but it's fun to talk to you. We went to Europe on the day we were landing on the moon. And when we got off the plane, we had to drive to Salzburg. And we always stayed in the same little hotel in Austria. It was very small. It was a German hotel. And I said to the girl, they had a TV in their sitting room, but not in the rooms.
Yeah.
And I said to the woman, are you going to get the moon landing here? And she said, yes. It'll be about 4 o'clock in the morning, something like that.
Yeah.
And I said, will you call me? And she said, yes. And when she called me to get up, oh, I was so tired. I did not want to get up. But I got up and got dressed because I knew it. My husband said, I'm too tired. I can't do it. So I went downstairs, and there were all these people sitting in front of a TV and sitting around, and I sat down, and I knew they knew. This was a German hotel. I knew they knew I was an American. I just felt it. Although the country was Austria.
Yeah.
So I sat there, and they had all the writing. They had, because they had to have it in German, they had it below, you know, the transcript or speaking. And I sat there, and I watched the landing on the moon. And when it was over with, and we stood up, everyone came up to me and shook my hand and said something to me in German, which I knew was congratulations, and I took the congratulations for everybody in that room, and I felt so important. And there I am, and they're all congratulating me. So then we went down to Yugoslavia, and it was right on the Adriatic, right at the base of the Adriatic. And now they're coming down that day. And then they landed in the Pacific, from that big ball or whatever it was. We're walking down the street, and in Europe, the houses in little towns are built right close to the street. Big, thick walls, and they don't seem to have any bugs or anything. And we're walking along, and I'm looking in this window, and I can see this parachute coming down. And I just screamed to my husband. I just stood there and looked in this woman's window and said, they're landing, they're coming down. And this woman looked up, and my husband said, oh, for goodness sakes, let's leave. And I said, no, no, and I'm standing. And the woman came outside, took my hand, took me into her house, and we both sat down. My husband followed, and we watched them landing. And I felt so good to be in another country to see that, but she was watching it. And when we were in Sarajevo, and the little kids are kind of poor children over there, they like to park your car, and they give them some money for it. And I had USA on our cars so that people wouldn't yell at us when we'd go down the wrong way street or do something we shouldn't. And I said USA, and the little children, every place we stopped, some child would come up and point and say, USA, astronaut, USA, astronaut. Yes, astronaut, astronaut. I just took all the credit, that moon landing.
That is so sweet.
Moon landing. It was really funny, though. And that year I was very glad because we had the Kennedy, it was a 50-cent piece, I think it was. And I took a whole bunch of those along with me. So every place where someone did something, especially children, would do something nice, I would give them a 50-cent, and I would show them Kennedy, astronaut, and I would give them to them. I don't know how many 50-cent pieces I gave away. So I played a part in the moon landing. It was funny.
That is so good. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No. I just hope we have some astronauts coming out of the school. Or if not astronauts, at least work at Kennedy Space Center or NASA in Houston. And I think we've got so much, you have so much to look forward to, in the years ahead.
Yeah.
And are the kids really interested in such things now? Do they talk about it a lot?
Well, obviously we've been talking a lot about Columbia. One of my friends, he doesn't go to school anymore, but he wants to he wants to work at NASA. He doesn't want to be an astronaut, but he wants to work there.
Well, And especially you girls these days. Oh, I wish I was just being born all over again, because the future, but I think what you have in front of you is just fantastic. The opportunities to do things. I wish I would have had a chance to even think. All we could think of in my day was teachers and nursing. I guess that was it.
And now we can have anything.
Pardon?
Now we can do anything.
Now you can do anything, and I think that's really great. But, you know, I think the future is, talking about the past is fun, and I think it is nice to have a record. You know, one thing I did think about, I wish I had done it, and I think every child should have a diary. You read John Hancock, his new book by McCullough, be sure to get it. Not John Hancock, John Adams, I'm sorry, John Adams' book by McCullough. And he kept a diary. And most, it seems to be people that I read about in history keep diaries. I wish I had written down certain things. I don't mean just about not writing down who you went out with tonight or something like that. I mean things that happen. Even the weather can be very, very important, like the blizzard of '77, and just to have a record. I'm so sorry that I never kept a diary, but I think it's something parents, if you read most historical books, they always encourage their children to keep a diary.
Yeah.
And it's not too late for you to start.
I have one.
You do?
Well, thank you for coming. It was a pleasure meeting you, and you are such a gold mine. So.
Oh, well, it's nice to meet you too. And you're a senior?
I'm a sophomore.
Sophomore, that's right. You told me
Yes.
that before.